Looks like we got a working live stream. Um, Yesterday we got cut off. I don't know what happened. It was just too weird. Um, the device went dark as I don't know what the heck happened. My device that was broadcasting with. I don't know. I never saw that before. So could I have run out of battery? Unlikely, but I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. But I checked it. I had 100% when I turned it on this morning, and after it booted up and stuff, it was at 98. So we'll see what happens. If I get a warning that the battery's going to die, I'll just have to sign off. But if I see that warning, I could also plug it in. But the cable was frayed. But I have other cables. We'll see what happens. I think we'll be all right. Pray. That's what I asked you. I'll pray. You can agree. Okay, my heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem, Yeshua, Mashiach. I pray we have no trouble with the broadcast today or the video or any of this. It all works out fine. No problems, no difficulties, no buffering, no blacking out, no getting cut off, no sound and picture problems. B'Shem, Yeshua, HaMashiach, and you can agree with that if you're a believer. Okay, so today is the 22nd of February. It's 8:11 in the morning, and the weather is unfortunately weird. Let's take a look. Looks like we're going to have sunshiny day all day, but it's not starting yet. Maybe at about 9 o'clock it'll crank up, and we're going to hit not much. My wife said we're going to hit 74 today. I don't see anything like that. 67 is the high. We use different weather channels. Tomorrow, unfortunately, they're talking rain. 60% chance. So, not a fun event. And then Thursday, rain again. Now, where did I go here? I hit the wrong button. Okay, Thursday, rain again, I think, with a chance of 65%. And mostly sunny other than that. But with that rain, it just makes everything miserable. Cold and damp and clammy, and it's just horrible. And now we're looking at the temperatures are going to be not winter temperatures, but like February temperatures, I guess. They're going to be in the low 60s. No, that's crappy weather. That's winter weather. No. So I don't know what happened. How can you have sunny and lows in the 40s, high 40s? And I don't know. It's cold. I'm still using my heavy blanket. But the weather changes. It may not hold. A week ago, we were going to have a heat wave this time. Yeah, it doesn't, We'll have to see what happens, okay? So I'm going to talk about the war and what's going on in the war, and then we're going to get into spiritual warfare. And I'm going to discuss with you some things about the Bible and the Masoretic text and how they've twisted and turned it and how it worked and how they got it. We'll go back to the Talmud. We'll go back to the Dead Sea Scrolls. We'll go back to the Septuagint, and I'll give you some ideas and put it together for you how they cheated us and gypped us, basically frauded us. The churches did it. Nobody else would have done it. And the sinful churches, and that's, and then we're going to talk about why you're never going to get AI to go along with correct doctrine. And I'm going to give you a prime example of an argument I had with ChatGPT this morning and how it's impossible to change them. There's something wrong with these things. Even open source artificial intelligence is not right. No. They're doing something to it. I don't know what. Or they have it programmed to go with the mainstream. That's probably the more likely situation. Okay. No, I don't want you scared because, I don't want to get you too scared. Oh, we don't have a Bible. No, we do have a Bible and we got a lot of good stuff. But am I of the belief that things are missing? Yeah. The Old Testament itself mentions, I don't know, 20 or so books of the Bible that we don't have. So yes, something's wrong. And when you go into the Apocrypha and the Pseudepigrapha looking for these books, how the heck do you know they're the same book? Any churchianity bum can go ahead and write a book and call it, whatever he wants. Call it Enoch, call it anything. Right? Okay. And without a real book in the Bible, you have no point of comparison. So we're handicapped. You see, the Satan's world is so weak they hold on by spitting bubble gum. They need all these extra little tools, but it's all falling apart for them because we got the keys to the kingdom, not them. We bind and loose, and they gotta go. They've fallen apart. That's why nobody, they want to have a war, but they're afraid to do a war. Trump's afraid to do a war because he's been getting tossed. People have been doing spiritual warfare against Trump and the Americans and the Iranians and the Chinese and the Russians and many of them. Okay, so they're afraid to do anything. But that doesn't mean the war won't come. It means they're afraid of it, but they'll still do it. Their nature is so predatory and they turn on each other so much, they'll do it. They'll do it all right. Don't you worry about it. They're savage people. Okay, let's go into the live stream and make sure we got a live stream. I planted 2 trees, so my fruit trees are loving the rain here in the USA East Coast. Okay, great for you. I hear a blizzard's approaching in the USA, I think in the East. I'm not sure. I read something about it, but we got people that come from around the world, so I can't really do the weather from the world. I can do Israel, and when there's severe weather someplace, I could point it out. Now, I want to put a post up in the chat. South Georgia, huh? Okay. That's near Florida, I imagine. All right, I'm going to put my post up. That's going to probably take seconds, not time of any significance. This is the time of year where you want that winter to be over with, in Israel. If you're up in the Northeast, you're still in the middle of your winter, basically. Your saving grace in February up in the Northeast is you're normally, when you get into March, you're not always, but frequently you'll get a reduction in snow, but you'll still have cold weather, but you won't have a lot of freezing weather. And then you get into April showers bring May flowers. And April showers just get everything cold again. We grow onions here, Vidalia. Oh, Vidalia, Georgia. Don't know where that is. It's exactly, but I spent a lot of time in Tallahassee, and we used to occasionally drive up to Georgia. But then Georgia started with the gun laws, and they were saying that you can't you could carry your Florida permit was good in Georgia, but if you went to a public place with the gun, you could be in trouble. So what's a public place? I think anything but the woods. So I stopped going up to Georgia because I usually had guns in the car and I didn't know what would happen. So I stopped going up there. You call the Georgia State Police and or the Highway Patrol, whatever they call it, and you try to get an answer from them, and they don't know what the heck to tell you. They don't know for sure, which means they might stop you and throw you in jail just because they don't know for sure. So anyway, I think Tallahassee was the only city in the major capital of the Civil War that never got captured by the North. All right, so being a Bible-believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise, and if you want to join in, you can join in. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 All right, so let's get into the war because that's probably going to affect a massive amount of people because the chances of this thing going out of control are really massive. Okay. I think that the Iranian leadership have deteriorated to the point of going insane. It happens. Look, it happened to Hitler, Stalin. I mean, Stalin was killing his own generals. Khrushchev was a big shot general or something under Stalin, and he was telling generals that if they didn't do things right, he told them, I'm coming up there in a few days and you would do well to blow your brains out before I get there, literally. So they went crazy, Hitler went crazy trying to expand. He got intoxicated, not literally, but he got all psyched up about conquering countries, and he thought he was going to take over, all of Europe and everything. He was a goner. So he expanded himself out too much. If he would have left Russia alone, he would have done a lot better. Russia was using horses back then. They were towing artillery by pulling it with a horse. Yeah. And they also would take, 3 or 4 guys and give them a bandolier of ammo and 1 rifle. Should I tell him if the guy with the rifle gets shot, you could take the rifle and keep, they were doing stuff like that. Americans were doing that too. They would say charge. And if the guys didn't want to get out of the foxhole or leave the barrier they were hiding behind, the sergeants would tell them if they don't go, he's gonna shoot them. And, stuff like this went on. I knew a guy that was flying bombers in Europe in World War II, and he told me that they gave all the guys in the crew a tankard of rum before they took off. Now, this is got a cup of mushroom soup in it, but this is a tankard, and they filled it with rum. And they didn't fill it with 10%, they filled it with 80 proof rum. The guys didn't want to go. Then they had anti-fatigue tablets, which was speed. So if they started getting sleepy, they could take an anti-fatigue tablet. War's terrible. Okay. When you're not with the Lord, it's terrible. When you're with the Lord, the nation's with the Lord, then you win, So what did Iran do that made me say they're crazy? Iran declares the Navy and the Air Force of all European Union countries as terrorist organizations. Look who's... Yeah, look at them. They really are a squeaky clean country. Right now, they're starting to kill the protesters again, and the protesters are rising up again. Out in the streets again. The sad part here is this. They're doing it because they really believe Trump's going to help them. I don't know for sure if Trump will help them. If Trump decides he's just going to do a nuclear treaty with Iran, these people are there's probably been over 100,000 dead already. You'll have another 100,000. And that's because they're listening to Trump. That's a serious mistake. Look what he did to them, back in early January, how he left them out to dry. And they're still getting killed. We don't know. They round them up, bring them into a dungeon, torture them, get whatever intel they can, and then kill them inside the dungeon and then dispose of the bodies somehow. They could use a crematorium, Now, this is a very, very unusual event that we had, and it could have serious implications for end times. Pakistan attacked targets in Afghanistan, and there's many casualties. This periodically has been happening with them. Now, I don't know what caused it, okay? But it can take off. And Afghanistan is going to help Iran. So maybe they're viewing Pakistan. No, Pakistan's with China. Oh, Pakistan's with China, which means they could be on Iran's side too. Yeah. Yeah. So yesterday I told you we had, or maybe I didn't tell you, we had France and Germany and Spain, and of course the U.S. previously, telling their people, France, Germany, and Spain were telling their people, get out of Iran now. Don't waste any time. Go right now. Go, 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 right? Now, we had more countries do that also up until yesterday. Serbia and Japan and Australia and Sweden are urging their citizens to get out of Iran without any delay. In other words, hit the road, Toad. Get out of there. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Like 8 countries. There's probably been 12 or 15 in reality, but they're not all announcing it so publicly. So they're telling the people to get out post haste, and that's a little bit on the serious side, you know. Okay, they've probably got some intel they base that on, or they wouldn't. You know. The Israelis officials believe that the U.S. and Iran are at an unbridgeable impasse as they near full, open conflict. They say they're too far apart. I agree. Reports are saying that the U.S. might allow Iran token nuclear enrichment, but gaps between sides widely seen as, irreconcilable. They're too far apart. Okay. Now, we hear a lot of talk about Trump and the nuclear, but, according to everyone else, Kushner, Witkoff, Rubio, Netanyahu, the Americans want the shooting at a civilian stopped, especially since it started up again. And they don't want Iran supporting the proxies, Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, their militias, Iraq. They don't want that anymore. And they want the ballistic missiles limited to 300-kilometer range, which the Iranians are already in some treaty to that effect, by the way. But they break it. And they don't want the nuclear enrichment. So they're pretty far apart. Iran won't even talk about anything but very limited, conversation about the nuclear stuff. I think Trump is treading water to get the other aircraft carrier groups out here. And Iran is treading water to try to fortify their nuclear facilities, their missile cities, anything and anything else, You just take dump trucks of soil and, you put 10, 15 feet, 20 feet of soil around something, and you take a bulldozer and you pack the soil down and, you're going to create some problems for bombs. And then just superficially, if you just laid 6 inches or a foot of concrete over the dirt, you create a barrier for missiles. How many, bunker busted 30,000-pound bombs does the United States have? They don't have 200 or 300. They might have 1 or 2 dozen or something like that, The New York Times, based on aerial observance or images, is saying more than 60 American fighter jets are currently parked at Muwafaq Salty Air Base in Jordan. At least 68 cargo flights by the U.S. military to this base in Jordan since last Sunday. 68. And that was written yesterday. So that's a lot of flights. Qatar also has a lot of planes. In addition, there's also planes in Saudi Arabia, as far as I know, too, but maybe not. And you got the two carriers. The two carriers are probably going to come in at about 150 aircraft. It's a low side, okay? They could come in at 180, but let's say 150. And they got, without, combat planes, they probably got at least 100. So you got about 250 fighter-capable aircraft that America has in the field, likely a higher figure. And you have the third aircraft carrier working its way over here, which would push the number of American aircraft over 300. And Israel's got about 350 planes. So, I mean, if you just combine Israel and America in the Middle East, you get 700. That's in a hysterically high figure. And all those refueling tankers, one refueling tanker can handle 5 jets. Trump's talk about a limited strike on Iran is weird. I don't understand it. If he thinks that Iran is just going to sit still for that and not retaliate, I think he's nuts. He starts with a limited strike. He's going to tell them that they can't strike back. And he thinks they're going to say, okay, Mr. Trump, we concede. Please don't kill us now or next year or the year after, and that ain't going to work. Look, it's real simple. If Iran got hit by Trump and then backed off and said, okay, Donald, we give up. We're not doing this. We're going to be friends with you. That doesn't help him. He wants a regime change, okay? Trump will tell Ayatollah, go pack up and go home. Maybe. Where's home? Got to go to Europe. Got to go to Russia, That's not his home. That could be his escape place, but we're not there yet, guys. It's he does a limited attack on Iran. He's going to get a limited attack back on his bases, and that's going to be lighting it up. At least 15 American refueling planes, that's the gas station in the sky, were spotted on the Portuguese island, Lajes, in the Atlantic Ocean. in addition to dozens of refueling planes. Well, these refueling planes and dozens of other extra refueling planes have been strewn about um, in bases around Europe in the last few days. So there's, probably, 50 or more refueling planes hanging around in the region. If you got, let's say, 60 of them, you can handle 300 planes. But are they going to ever put 300 planes in the air at the same time? I doubt it. They'd be banging into each other. They're not going to do that. All right. Because of Portugal, they're thinking that this could be used to refuel B-2 strategic bombers coming into the region. So in other words, when they cross the Atlantic, they're going to be, sort of depleted of fuel to an appreciable extent, I would assume. And then the planes, the refueling tankers can meet the B-2s and give them a drink of fuel. And then they could cross the Mediterranean. Britain is not wanting America to use Diego Garcia to launch an attack on Iran. They go back and forth about this and other places. So Britain's not in good shape politically. All right. So the thing with Great Britain is probably calmed down. The B-2s have not been put on Diego Garcia. There's a lot of reasons for that. It might not be political. It could be they're worried about what capability Iran might be able to muster up from launching long-range missiles off of a disguised commercial vessel. Getting close enough to Diego Garcia to unload a rain of missiles on the place. I don't know. The last time the B-2 bombers flew to the Middle East, dropped their bombs, and flew back to America, Trump didn't want to take any chances with those things. Is Trump going to use the B-2s again? I don't know. I think he's going to want Israel or America or somebody to try to soften him up with regular planes before they start risking B-2s or B-1s. Things are weird. What I see is the Americans are not dead certain about what kind of capabilities Iran has, because a massive amount of cargo planes come in from Russia and China, and they don't know what they're up against entirely. What we might see is the destroyers and other vessels. There's 6 vessels. Well, by the time we got a second aircraft carrier in theater, which could be tomorrow or something, probably tomorrow night or Tuesday or something. They could launch the cruise missiles that designed to destroy radar. The way that game works is they got to get Iran to turn the radar on. Well, that could be done by scaring them, approaching with aircraft and get about 200-300 miles away, where the getting away is still pretty good, I guess, and get the radar to turn on and then take off, or I don't know. I'm sure they got a way to do it. And then they're going to launch these anti-radar missiles that are going to get on the radar beam or get a lock on where the beam goes to and come in. And they're going to be very low-flying cruise missiles, very smart missiles, very, very hard to take down. And they're going to come in on the radar and blow everything up. They could launch 50 or 60 missiles that way and take out some radar to open up a corridor and then go in that corridor with heavy bombers and blow stuff up. There's a million ways they could do things. We're just really going to have to watch, So yesterday, the IRGC was massacring protesters in Abdanan, Iran, and then since then, more protesters have come into the street, and they've been encountering the IRGC and fighting them, and so Trump has got the protesters trying to take out the Iranian government before the bombing starts. So I don't know. Arab and Muslim nations on yesterday, sharply condemned comments made by the U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, who said Israel has a right to much of the Middle East. Huckabee made the comments in an interview with conservative commentator Tucker Carlson that aired Friday. Carlson said that according to so they dropped on Huckabee. Basically, Huckabee was getting into the land covenant from Genesis 15. And, the Muslims are saying, wait a minute, our oil wells and palaces are in this. No, no, no. So Trump may fire Huckabee. It depends how much of a stink the Muslim friends of Trump get into it, how mad they get. Now seen at the Lakenheath Air Force Base in England. I think this is additional. 12 F-22 fighter jets intended to be deployed to the Middle East are on standby. And I think there's an additional 12 somewhere in the Middle East, or maybe this is it. I'm unsure. It could be the same 12. And they wound up deploying them in the UK, not bringing them down here. So, yeah, it could be the same 12 we spoke about. Hamas says Hamas says they're open to the Gaza peacekeeping force, but rejects foreign role in internal affairs. So they want to run the police department, they want to run the courts, but they don't mind having an international force come in to restrict Israel from attacking them. That's basically what this is. Now, I want to point out to you, it's been about 1 year since Trump started threatening Gaza about disarming and all the bad things that would happen to him if they didn't disarm, just like he's threatening Iran. And of course, he ran away from the Houthis. So, the Hamas isn't taking this very seriously at all. Neither is Iran. And, if you talk to Trump, if you were his friend, he probably still doesn't understand what he's doing wrong in the Middle East. I'm serious. I don't think the character understands the mistake he's making. And many mistakes. He doesn't get it. You can't deal with these people the way Trump wants to deal with them. So Trump is getting himself a jacket of being afraid to fight. Trump canceled his trip to northern Italy, where he was planning to attend the Winter Olympics. Okay. Trump also canceled the trip to Mar-a-Lago for this weekend. So he wanted to stay in the White House and attend meetings, which is, it's telling me he's on edge of a preemptive attack by Iran, which would be on the bases. I'll be back in a second. So Trump is really hard to read, and that's because Trump doesn't know what Trump wants to do yet. That's what you're dealing with. It appears to me that there's hundreds of people doing serious spiritual warfare against Trump and many other world leaders, and they know how to do it. And Trump is scared to death about getting into the middle of a war. Mommy, come. Mommy, come here. I don't want to come. And not having his demons around him. Iran likewise. And the other countries. So they're sitting there in a holding pattern, expecting what? Satan's going to figure out an answer? Satan has no answer to the keys to the kingdom, the binding and the loosing. He's got nothing. So when you fight the works of the unclean spirit, like the people that serve them, or you fight them, you're doing it wrong. The people doing the spiritual warfare against these nations are not doing it wrong. They're doing it right. They're severing the unclean spirits from the world leaders and the militaries and the government. Now, we have a right to do that. What country is going to go pass a law saying tossing a demon out of a public figure is illegal. That's just going to make 1 million or 2 million people start tossing the demons out of them. It's a way to conduct a revolution against these pathetically rotten leaders that are incompetent all over the world, that rob money from the people without having to get killed. It just requires a little patience. So they have disputes with each other. And they can't settle them. They don't have the unclean spirits to approve them going into some sort of peace deal with another country. So they don't do it. The only war going on is Ukraine and Russia. And we never bore down on that one with spiritual warfare. So all the nations are scared to get into something without the demons. They don't know what will happen. Demons are getting thrown out of them in massive quantities. Okay. No, that's new for them. But it's been a long time. They're getting used to it. They don't like it. I don't care what they like. I don't like them. I mean, look at this scum and the king of Jordan with palaces, billions, and the Saudi Arabian trillions, and Iraq. It goes on much less in Iraq because they have actually some sort of a government. They don't have the big dictator thing going on. Okay, but Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, they all do. They got the big dictator thing going on with the oil money, as does Iran. Look, you can call him Ayatollah Khomeini, you can call him Emir Khomeini, you can call him King. It's the same stupid game. It's a dictator. A king is a dictator. It's the same thing as a dictator. So they don't know what to do. You got a better explanation? Biden didn't know what to do. He staged more ships. I think at one point there was 42 naval vessels, counting some allies he had, in the Middle East area. He didn't have this big air campaign, but he had the 3 carriers here, usually 2, sometimes 3. So that's hundreds of jets, Could have almost 250 jets with 3 of them here. And Trump built up, and what did Trump do with all his buildup? He dropped a few bombs on some nuclear facilities that probably did nothing in the final analysis of any substance. Israel went after them, but didn't hit the right targets. Now Trump's trying to get the protesters to do it. Do you understand? Yeah. The protesters are generally not Satan bots. The leaders of the protesters would be, but the protesters are the ones going out and sticking their neck out. The leaders are hiding in some building somewhere doing the communications and trying to control the protest. Do these leaders of the protesters really want to get rid of Khomeini? Oh, I'm sure they do. Yeah. And they see it as a good opportunity because they got their demons. Did we ever demon toss the protesters? The leaders of them, I don't think so. And why? Let them run around and go after Khomeini. They're not saying they want to destroy Israel or they want to destroy America. Leave them alone. For now. They don't know what to do. Trump's like the old woman who lived in a shoe. Yeah, I know I said old woman. He doesn't know what to do. They're dumb people, I told you. Bureaucrats that dress right, walk right. They're idiots. You'll see sooner or later how dumb they really are. You'll get it. All right. Trump had been scheduled to attend Sunday's ice hockey final between the United States and neighboring Canada. That fell apart in his plans. So I think he's not necessarily going to, when the aircraft carrier comes closer to Israel in the Mediterranean, I don't think Trump's going to buy that as saying, oh, it's in the field. And I'm not so sure that Trump is going to place that number 2 aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean. He may want it over where the Abraham Lincoln is. Sea of Oman or Arabian Sea or the Indian Ocean out there. But he might want one over in Mediterranean to handle Iraq. And so I don't know. Iran, okay, this now you got to listen to this. I'm going to explain to you what this is. Iran moves troops to the border with Iraq. So people are sitting there, well, what is this? He's going to, invade Iraq, blah, 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 blah. No, Iraq's their friend. The problem is Iraq has also got a new political leader, and I don't know. Trump's pretty happy about having bases in Iraq right now. And he's also moving ISIS prisoners from the prisons in Syria to prisons in Iraq. What the fear is, Iran and Iraq have a border. They can bring junk into each other's border easily. And America has bases there. So America could easily fly in or bring in some Green Berets, Delta, Navy SEALs, whatever, right? And they could sneak into Iran and do what they do, which what they do is referred to generically as doom and gloom on Iran. Whatever they're going to do, they're not there to help, Iran train school crossing guards. They're here to make life miserable for the Khomeini and the mullahs and the regime. Miserable. And if they can, kill and kidnap them. Now, Khomeini may be a very, very hard target to reach, but Israel will ultimately get him if he stays there long enough. But there's a lot of other targets, and they're not that hard to reach. Generals, right? Governors, all different kinds, minister of this, minister of that. They can't protect all these clowns the way they do Khomeini, so they can get them. You get 10 or 15 or 20 high-ranking stooges for Ayatollah Shmukmani, and, what's that old man going to do by himself? In Sana'a, which is Yemen, think the Houthis, they're announced raising the alert to emergency status. All bodies without revealing the reason. All the military, the whole thing is on alert. Probably the government of Yemen, but it might be the Houthis, but I think it's the whole country, Houthis and Yemen. Without revealing the reason for this decision, which comes against the backdrop of regional tensions and American military buildups in the area. Well, okay. Now I want to talk about a poll they just run in Israel, and it was rather a flawed poll. It came on one TV show, so you're getting it from people that watch that TV show. So there's a bias right there, right? Okay. Poll on the Hebrew channel on Israel's settlements in the Gaza Strip. In a period of 2 hours, more than 37,000 voters, 61% of the voters in the poll, and 68% of those with an opinion on the matter support Israel's settlements in the Gaza Strip. See, we never lived in the Gaza Strip like, 2 million or anything like that, right? We only lived there like not even as heavy as the West Bank, but it was just settlements, and the Muslims were living there, but we were there, So they yanked us off the settlements and threw us out. The Israeli military, Netanyahu, was very much in favor of us leaving. It's a terrible thing that happened. Okay, now we switch to New York. Thousands of New Yorkers left terrified as a huge gathering declares they've seized control of the city. The crowd erupts. Allah Akbar. So what's going on there with that mayor, Malani, I don't know, whatever his name is, the Muslim guy? Okay, he's going to start, I believe it already began. A lot of the police are going to start quitting. Now, not a lot of them, it may take a long time for that to happen, but some of them that can put their papers in probably did. Now, New York City has a mandatory retirement for cops. Let's get the age on that. And that means the cop has to go. He can't stay there. He'd have to get the police commissioner to write an exemptive order or something like that. But, I don't know if that's even possible, but probably. Okay. What is the mandatory retirement age for NYPD members? The police and the fire have to go out at 62. Oh, there is an upcoming change under consideration in the New York State legislature. They're thinking of raising it for police to 65. Only for those who became subject to it after July 1st, 2025. It's not yet given. It is not yet a law. Now, they can retire earlier. Let's see. Regarding NYPD, how many years on the job as a minimum must they have to be able to retire and pull a pension? And when or at what age would they be able to draw down on that pension? Let's see. I'm going to make sense out of this for you in a minute, what the mayor's up to. You got to do 20 to get a pension. So they could join at 20 years old. I had a friend that was a cadet out of high school, and he worked as like a cadet for 3 years, and then they sent him to the academy. But as a cadet, he was getting paid, so he could have had his 20 at right around 38, but he could have his 30 at around 48. He could have 40 years at around 58. Let's see how much they get. I'm going to put this together for you. Don't worry. They get about half of the final average salary at 20 years. They get almost 2% more for every year. So if they work 25 years, they could get, instead of 50%, they could get 60 to 65%. Now, other police, I knew a guy that retired from another police department near New York in the suburbs, and he went out after about 12 years, and he got a pension. It was a light pension. I think he probably got himself about a 25% pension, something like that. But I think at 40 years, you would get your full pay or something. Let me see what it comes to. And yeah, I'm going to make this point. I'm going somewhere. Don't worry. I really am. If someone became a police cadet at 18 and was getting paid and retired after 40 years at age 58, what would their pension look like? Oh, they usually max them out by 75%. They would probably retire before they hit the cap, unless, like I knew a guy that did it, he was 18. I think he went on and he got out at about 60. I don't think he stayed. Um, I think he just stayed there. He didn't know what to do with himself, probably. Um, let's see. The typical top New York police officers nearing retirement have a base salary of 110 to 130, with overtime getting up to 160. Uh, yeah, they could get $100,000 pension, about 8,500 to $9,000 a month. Um, Let me just check something here real quick. What is a typical police officer salary after 30 years on the job and no rank, just standard police officer? They get $110,000 to $125,000 base pay. Then they get a longevity pay bonus, which could be $5,000 to $10,000 a year. Then they got overtime, which varies. They could be making up to 170 a year. Yeah, some of them probably get crazy pensions. So this friend of mine probably got I haven't spoken to him in years, but we used to talk. He probably got a lot of money. I ran into him one day coming out of a liquor store. This is a million years ago. And he showed me, he says, "Oh, look what I got. I got to go to sleep because I got to work midnight." So he bought a pint of liquor to go to sleep. That's alcoholic kind of behavior. You understand? Okay, regular people don't go do that. You know. Okay. Why am I talking to you about this? Well, the mayor of New York is going to try to get the cops to quit. Listen to me. This is a given. Now, it's not so fast to get the cops to quit. First, he's just newly in office, so they're stewing, and a lot of them are probably saying, "I'm getting out of here." Now, who would be the ones that would say they were going to get out of there? Well, there's a lot of Catholic cops in New York, and they're not going to like this Muslim stuff at all. Okay? And the priests are telling them that the Muslims are false gods and false religion, so they're going to want to get out. Okay? And then comes the Jews, which is very small. I don't think they even have 1,000 Jewish cops there. Maybe 1,000, but probably more like 200 or 300. They don't have Jewish kids don't usually go into law enforcement. It's not something that it attracts them. It doesn't go on very much. I was one, and I was on a department in California as a deputy sheriff, and I was a Jewish kid with a Bachelor of Science degree in criminology, and they hated me because they didn't have college degrees. They couldn't stand me, you know. It was like nobody liked me, you know. Um, so eventually I left, but you can't be a believer and work in law enforcement. You just really can't do it, you know. I don't think you could be a believer and work as a teacher in the United States. But okay, moving along. So they're going to try to get driven out. So the ones that got 20 years on the job are going to be very quick and easy to go. Why? Because they're going to have a pension. After 20 years, let's say they're probably making $100,000 a year or 90 or something like that. They get half. So they'll get about $50,000 pension, which is going to keep you out of the poorhouse. Okay? It's not a lot of money, but you're out of the poorhouse. They can't pull Social Security unless they're at least 62, but they don't get anything realistic until they're 66 or 67, something like that. So they're going to want to work again. Now, they may not want to work again in law enforcement. A lot of them do weird things. So go get a truck driver license, right? And they'll drive a big truck. Okay, a lot of them already are driving buses for the police so they could get themselves a job as a bus driver. Like in New York, they could, but they probably wouldn't want to do it. What kind of bus driver job would they probably like to get? Go down to Disney World and drive a bus for Disney. Drive kids around all day, a nice, relaxing place, things like that. They're not going to want to go. A lot of them aren't going to want to go get another law enforcement job, okay? And they're not going to want to get a private security job, okay? Now, the ones that have 25 and 30 years on the job, they're going to be a lot quicker to quit. Okay? They're going to say, I had it. Let's just quit, because they get their Social Security. So they'll get a high Social Security probably today about 34, 35, 3,600, 3,800 maybe. So they got that, which is, say they get about $35,000 a year from Social Security, and then they get about 65,000, 70,000. They got it made. So if they're not 67, they just sit around and wait till they are. They'll have, by that time, their houses are paid off and, stuff like that. So they do stuff like that, they're going to quit. And he wants them to quit. He's probably going to start giving them incentives to quit. Like, if he can, help them with the pay or something like that. So when they quit, he's going to replace them with Muslims. He's going to start a recruitment drive at the mosques. We need you. Protect your fellow Muslims. Come join our police department and pervert the law, and they'll do it. And what are they going to do then? Well, you know what they're going to do then. Imagine Hamas being the police departments in Israel for the Jews. That's what New York will look like. Okay? The Jews will have to leave New York. And that's probably one of their big goals. But it's not so fast. The cops just don't go, I'm putting my papers in, and they go down and wait online. They say, I want out, and they say, come on, I'll show you how to fill the forms out. And they sit there and fill all the forms out. And that's basically what they do. One of the clerks will sit there and help them, or they'll usually have a rep from their PBA, Police Benevolent Association, or walk them through how to do the paperwork, and then they're out. They turn their badge and their guns in and their other equipment in, and that's it. They go home, and they make them an ID card that says they're retired police, and then they give them a flat wallet badge that says police retired, and they go home, and that's it. They can carry a gun under the new federal laws. And and then probably within a month they start getting their pension. And a lot of them, when they leave, they got a lot of backed up holiday pay, vacations, sick pay, stuff like that, so they could get some fat money. And that's it. They're done. And now some of them will go to other police departments. Okay. Generally, most of them would want to move someplace where it's warm, or go someplace where there's good hunting or fishing or something like that. Maybe they want to go skiing. Most of them are going to leave and want to go someplace else. they could get recruited by the feds, but probably 95% of them have no interest. Because with the feds, you're not stationary. They'd want to be stationary. So they would join another department someplace who would recruit them. And they would not have to go through the academy. They would have to get trained a little bit about the law in that state and the policies and procedures about that department. And there's a lot of different ways they could do that. They'd have to go ride with a training officer for some weeks, maybe a month, to learn how things work in that department. The transference would be pretty easy. And a lot of it depends on what kind of rank they get. They might get hired by another department and they want them for training. They don't want them out on the street. It could be all kinds of things, but they're going to leave. A lot of them are going to leave. Now comes, look, we're not done here. Let me finish. It's just going to go. Now, what about the fire department? It's a big secondary. What are they going to do? Not go to Jewish fires? They're not going to get it. That's not a priority. Okay. Let's talk about the district attorney. He's elected. Okay. And the district attorney, I think there's a different one for each borough. I'm not sure. The one that runs the district attorney is the prosecuting attorney in other states. Okay. In Florida, it's called the state's attorney. Okay. This is a prosecutor, prosecutes the crimes, and the prosecutor is elected. So they're going to overthrow, well, they're probably just going to wait initially and elect people that are Muslim for the district attorney position, right? He gets a big salary, probably $250 a year, 300,000, something like that, 400,000, a big salary, and he has people working as attorneys that are called assistant. They don't use the word deputy there. Usually, they call it assistant district attorney, and the assistant district attorney are people that work for 20, 30 years. They retire and get a pension. However, what a lot of them do is they get on the job as a prosecutor, but it's not so easy to get that job. They don't just take kids out of law school. They want experience or something, in the system. So it's a little weird, but let's say you get in there. They probably don't have a lot of Muslims or any Muslim district attorneys. So they're going to try to create a war on the district attorneys to get rid of them, the employees. The way that'll work is they'll have to get some Muslims elected. Now they'll play games with the voting if they can. All the garbage will come into play. They'll get Muslim district attorneys that will start running the people out of the district attorney's office. The district attorney isn't going to give a hoot about the mayor, being a Muslim. See, the district attorney is his own man or woman. It's an elected official. So the mayor can't call the district attorney up and say, "You get over here. I want you here in 1 hour in my office." He'll say, "Hey, buddy, I can come, Wednesday next week. I can't come today. I'm busy. What do you want? Come to my office." He doesn't have to listen to him. They can't do anything to him. You can't fire him. He's an elected official. What are you going to do? So, they're not going to be that worried about it, but they're going to, the way they're going to penetrate that is they're going to put Muslim into office, and then he's going to bribe the people and make it very miserable for them to stay on the job there. So they'll go to other offices or go into private practice or something. They're going to have problems. And then what? Then they're going to start playing games with who gets prosecuted and who doesn't get prosecuted. So if the non-Muslim police arrest Muslims for protesting and doing violence to people that they don't like, these police are not going to arrest them. But if there are police that do, then they're put in the system. The mayor can't go down there and say, release this guy. Then the next tier, the next level is to have the district attorneys not prosecute the case. Just say, we're not prosecuting this, and kick the guy out. Or they can prosecute it and lose. So now the Muslims are going to be free to do a lot of bad things. Do you got it? That's the future in New York. Okay. Now they're also going to try to put Muslims in other positions like building inspectors, restaurant inspectors, health inspectors, and throw the bias at, cut a lot of slack for the Muslims and come down hard on the people they don't like Jews and Christians, and. So is the city gone? Well, it's got a ways to go. This is the beginning of the end because they got the kingpin, the mayor. But here's the problem. The governor is not with the mayor. So the governor has a lot of say over New York. And Trump, the president, does not like this mayor, and he can exert a great deal of pressure on New York also. So this is what you got to go up against. The unusual thing going on here, guys, is the real estate in New York might be the most expensive in the United States, but definitely in the top 5, I would say. And it's probably in the top 10 or so in the world. And what are they going to do about this? I don't know. Like, what do I mean? Like, you go to Chelsea or some of these neighborhoods there in the Manhattan, and you want to get a 2,500 square foot apartment in one of these buildings that's not a penthouse, not on the top floor, and you're going to maybe pay $17 million or 12 million or crazy numbers. What are they going to do with all of these things? You want to get a 2-bedroom apartment with 1,400 square feet on the second floor with a view of nothing and barely getting any sunlight. You might pay $2 or $3 million. Or more. What are they going to do with this real estate? Where are they going to find people that are going to come buy your 18 or 25 or $35 million luxury apartment? Who's going to come pay you for that with this Muslim stuff going on over there? Nobody. And a lot of this stuff is the people mortgage it. They don't go pay cash. What are they going to do? I don't know. Crazy world, right? Okay. New York has truly fallen, but it's not all gone yet. But I think the only thing that's going to happen is it'll get slowed down, the destruction. I'm going to see if we can get any numbers for how many cops retired and quit since November. Let's get into it. Oh, this rotten iPad. Okay. How many NYPD police officers retired or resigned since November 2025? Let's see if we get any figures. It may not be released. They're saying through August 2025, from January 1, 1,807 officers retired and about 517 resigned in 2025. So 2,000 324 left by August. I'm not sure they know. Let me keep looking. They're estimating between 2,800 and 3,387 officers were retiring or resigning in 2025. That's roughly 8 to 10% of the entire force in 1 year. That's quite high. But from news and hiring data, heavy attrition continues in late 2025. Hundreds leaving monthly reported in late 2025 news. Surge in resignations noted around November to December period. That's when the idiot, no, he got elected, but he started work in January, but he was elected then, I think, in November. From November 2025 to February 2026, and the month isn't even over yet, likely 400 to 900 officers retired or resigned. See, I'm right. The normal monthly average is 150 to 300 leaving. So this could be triple or more. over the last few years, they lost 14,500 officers in 4 to 5 years. See, people were quitting because it was lousy work. See, the problem with them in New York is they understand they're going to have crooked cops. And the problem with them is they overreact. And they fire cops like crazy. They're afraid if they don't fire the cops, they're going to get more corrupt cops like they had in the 60s and 70s, I knew cops back in the before Serpico hit, and man, they wouldn't pay for anything. I'm not kidding you. If they went to the zoo, I think you paid 25 cents to enter the Bronx Zoo. They would tin their way in. That's tin is they'd show their badge. So they would show their badge to the guy taking the money at the zoo. Now, why does the guy let them do that? Because if he gets stopped for a traffic violation, he says, "Oh, I work at the zoo. I see you guys all the time. What do you do?" "Oh, I do the entrance where you pay to get in." "Oh, yeah, okay, listen, don't do that anymore. See you later, bye." Bus drivers. They get on the bus. The bus used to be 15 cents. They won't pay the 15 cents. They pull their badge out. They call it a shield, They pull their badge out and they show it to the bus driver, and they don't pay for the bus ride. So what happens? A bus driver's going 80 miles an hour in a 45. They pull them over and say, "Come on, man, you're a bus driver." "Well, you can't go 80. You got to slow down. Come on, now get out of here. Goodbye." No ticket. And they let him ride the bus for 15 cents to go for free. They also let the priests and the nuns go for free too, if they're a Catholic bus driver, which a lot of them were at the time. But and the nuns and the priests were very bold about it. The bus would be full of people, and they would get on and not pay. Nobody cares about that stuff. So they wouldn't pay for nothing. If they would go in a nightclub and they used to have you pay $1 or $2 at the door, they'd show the guy the badge and not pay. Oh, you know what a lot of them do? They'd go to nightclubs and they'd bring their own liquor. And they'd order one drink, right? Like, give me I don't know, a Bloody Mary or something like that. And then they would take their drink into the bathroom, and then they'd fill it up with their flask and then go back and sit down. So they wouldn't give these guys money. They wouldn't pay any admission charge. I think they used to go into the movie theaters for free. Restaurants, you get in New York, you get free. When I was doing it, we go in with uniform with certain places. You had to wear the uniform, though, and this was California. You had to show up in uniform, and they gave you half off. But, you got to be a little careful. Here you are, you're sitting in the restaurant with a uniform on, right? And people could come over to you, this guy out here is bothering me. You don't want to bother with that crap. You want to eat. So is it really worth it? It's like, no, it's not. I don't want to get bothered, You got to go out, and then your food gets cold, and do they give it to you for free? No, they wouldn't give it to you for free. But in New York, places, well, you got to be careful. I mean, if you're the beat cop in that area, the restaurant's probably going to let you eat for free if you want to go there and do it. But let's say you're working in Queens and you're in Manhattan, and you're going to walk into a restaurant in Manhattan and show your badge and say you want to eat for free. I mean, they're not going to do that. They'd bankrupt the restaurant. There'd be thousands of cops. So they can't really get away with that. there's things they could do, like parking. If they want to go to the beach and there's parking, they'll go pull up and show. If it's the city that owns the beach, they show them the badge and they'll just get in. They don't have to pay for the parking. Uh, what else did I get for free? Stores are giving discounts. Insurance companies for car insurance or whatever give them a discount. Um, but you could get that if you're an electrical worker or a longshoreman or something. You get the discount. If they go to any of the attractions, like they want to go to the top of the Empire State Building, they don't have to pay anything. Statue of Liberty, they don't have to pay anything. Get on the subways, they don't pay. What they do in the subways is some exit doors. There's a turnstile to get in, waist high. And this is how it used to be. And then they had wooden doors where you'd exit. So the cop would go to the wooden door, push it, walk in, and hold his badge up to the guy selling the tokens, and he would just get in. The guy selling the tokens can't do anything about it. He has to call the police to do something, and then the police come over and they see he's another cop. They're not going to do anything. The toilets on the subway became pay toilets. So you had to put a dime in back then. So I don't know how they got the toilet to open up for free. They can't go over to a dumb toilet with a machine and say, "Hey, look at my badge, open up." What else would they get for free? The ferry to go to Staten Island, they could ride that for free. Botanical Gardens, that was pay. You'd get in there for free. What else? What else? That would probably be about it. But if you were working in a precinct and you had a beat, and you would be able to talk to the merchants in your precinct. A precinct would sometimes have as many as 3 or 4 neighborhoods. And you wouldn't be known to all the merchants. You would be working in one of the neighborhoods. You'd be in a car or on foot patrol and you would meet the merchants. And then they would, you could just come in with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever on your day off and go say hello to him and say, come on, let me get you something to eat. He'll invite you in, and he won't charge you. So they do that stuff, but they got to watch it. They're told to cool it. You can't go hit the same guys all the time. They take that low. They do that conservatively. The guys are paying that. Well, in the old days, they were paying the guys at the precinct every, week or month. The guy would come around, the guy that was collecting, and they'd pay because they wouldn't be getting the customers wouldn't get double parking tickets, triple parking tickets, things like that. If the store owner was closing at night, he wanted to not leave the money in the store. Let's say he was a restaurant and he had, $2,000-3,000 back then, and he wanted to get it into the bank. The beat cop would come when he was closing and walk with him to the bank where there was a big solid steel drop box, and he'd have a special envelope made out of leather or plastic, a thing about this big, with a lock on it, and he would put the money in there with a deposit receipt, drop it in the big heavy metal box, and when the bankers came to work in the morning, 2 of them would have to be together, and they'd open up that bag and they'd count the money together and deposit it. Usually they never had any trouble. One time, it was right in the same neighborhood where I grew up. This guy came and he dressed up like a private security guard, and he put a cardboard box up in front of the bank deposit box. And I don't know why the cops didn't pick this up. They're not too bright. And he was standing there telling the people that the box was broken So I'm here to protect the money and just put it in the cardboard box. And the merchants were throwing thousands of dollars in, and he just took the money and left. And he fooled the cop. They probably would have loved to catch him. Clothing store in the neighborhood where the cop would work at the beat. He'd go into the clothing store and buy clothes. They'd give it to him, I don't know, half off, whatever, free, whatever. They gave it to him cheap. And, they were, but the cops were smart. They knew that they would make a lot of money, but they only took a little bit from everybody. If they pulled you over for speed or bad driving, lane change or whatever, they wouldn't, this is the old days, they wouldn't try to hit you up for $20 or $30. They hit you up for $6 or $8, It'd take a small amount. But then the guy could go around and, that was pocket money, $6. Two people could go to a good deli or a Chinese restaurant and eat a big meal. But he wouldn't do that once a day. He'd do it 5 or 6 times a day, every day. So a lot of these cops rented apartments. They had so much money, they rented apartments in their neighborhood they worked at the beat. So when it was cold or hot, they went off the street and they went into their apartment, right? And they put the air conditioner, the heat on, and the TV, made something to eat, had a beer, took a shower, whatever. They kept the radio, but then they had big radios they would carry, and they kept the radio there. And it was even easier for them to do before they had the radios. And if something happened, they were in the beat, they were in the zone. They just run outside, throw the uniform back on and run outside. So they were foot patrol. They weren't with a car. If they had a car, it was a little bit more trouble for them to do that because they couldn't just leave the car out in the street. I mean, for a half hour they could, but not too much longer than that. So a lot of them kept booze up there. They went up there and had drinks, and they shared it. A lot of times, 5 or 6 cops would use the same apartment, and there were characters there, but they kept, like our neighborhood, they kept it safe. If they caught a guy that was trying to rob houses, they beat him up right in the street. They hit him with a stick in the stomach, he'd throw up. They didn't fool around. If you called them up and said there was some guy, hanging around the building, looks like he's going to rob somebody, they'd come over there, and if the guy, I mean, they were not afraid. They'd smack the guy around. They'd take him to the station, throw him down a flight of steps. Say if the guy wanted to fight, they'd shoot him. They didn't care. Nothing would really happen to them. They knew that. So they would, if they saw somebody trying to sell drugs in the neighborhood, they came around and got that. They got all over that. They took care of the place. They kept it pretty okay. If you were double parking and they saw you there, they'd say, "Is this your car?" You'd say yes, and they wouldn't say registration. Like, they didn't bother that crap. They'd say, "Move it," and you move it. They didn't bother you. They didn't give you a ticket. If you double parked and you weren't around, then they'd probably give you a ticket. What else did they do? I don't know. I can't remember everything, but it used to be that if you wanted a gun permit in New York, you went to the captain of your precinct, and he'd give you the gun permit. So if you were in a restaurant and you were letting the cops eat there for half off or for free, or maybe the cops paid half off and the sergeants and the captain and lieutenant would get it free. I don't know. And you want a permit, you go there and they say, oh, you got to give us like $100 or $300, and they get you a gun permit, But they took that away, The Serpico thing was their problem, That cost them. But then it rebuilt the crime, the corruption built back up. They're just dedicated to corruption over there. Other police departments around the country would never, ever, ever do anything like they did. Never. I mean, just, LA would, San Francisco would, I don't know all of them. I believe Miami probably, we're talking 50s and 60s and 40s, they would do it. But, a lot of the smaller towns like, you could say Tallahassee, Florida, for instance, those cops there never would do anything like that. Oh, they'd eat in restaurants for free and they'd let the merchants give them a discount. But that's it. They wouldn't take money. Would they go to the movies for free? Yeah, they would do that stuff. Yeah. They'd go to the movies for free and, but they didn't, it wasn't the same. So anyway, now the cops are running away from over there, and the Muslim cops are going to be the ones that are going to get the jobs, because the mayor's going to make sure that the cops that are bringing, the ones in charge of hiring the new recruits are going to be the Muslims. And they're going to be told just to hire Muslims, and that's what you're going to see. He's going to try it. I don't know if he's going to get away with it, but he's going to try it. And he's going to get away with it to a certain extent, for sure. How much, we don't know. Okay, so New York City did bite the dust. That is the truth. I don't think they're going to bother with the fire department. Now, some of these guys might quit. There's a lot of Irish and Italian people in the fire department. They're Catholic, and they might quit if they don't like it. But they're not going to try to put Muslims in the fire department. Now, what about the hospitals? I don't think they're going to bother with the hospitals. They'll try to hire Muslim doctors from other countries, but they do that already. I'll be back in a minute. The interesting thing about New York is it's really the financial center of the United States. You got New York Stock Exchange, you got the Futures Exchange, New York Stock Exchange has the bond exchange. You got, I think, the biggest Federal Reserve Bank there. You got Goldman Sachs, and you got all the big investment bankers there, big insurance companies there, big transportation companies, advertising companies, stockbrokers. I think I said that. Transportation, and he's gonna run them out. Their workers it's gonna be dangerous living there, and oh. Let me take a look at the live stream, see if I'm getting questions. So Trump's, I would think, is still on board attacking Iran. I just think he's now waiting for the aircraft carriers, at least one more, to show up. That's what I think he's doing. He might want the two of them to show up, the Bush and the Ford aircraft carrier groups. I'm not sure if he's waiting for both of them or he's going to be happy with just one more. I don't know. And do I think he's going to attack Iran? I think he's afraid to. That's why he's saying, oh, we'll do a limited strike. So he'll bomb some nuclear facilities and not do a lot of damage and tell Iran that's it. Now, if you make a deal, we're done, and I don't, maybe he hopes Iran will just not make a deal and not counterattack. I don't know. I think Iran will counterattack. And I think Trump's making a big error about that. But let's see if he has the guts to attack with what he calls a limited attack. I'm not so sure he has the guts for that. Let's see. Let's see what I got in my live stream here. I'll go check. I try to answer questions. What are my thoughts on Mormons? Well, they don't seem to follow the Bible, do they? Let's see. Where is the EVE? Don't know what the EV is. Sorry. Wow, I have a typo on my, hold on a minute. I got to fix this. Let's see. Okay, I know how to do it. Let me try it a different way. No, it's not working in a different way. Okay, I have another way to do it. Give me a second here. I got a typo in I wrote PayPal and it says Pat Pal. Oh, my bad vision. I probably didn't pick it up. And almost there. Okay. Now I got this. Wait a minute. I think I did it again. I did it again. There's something wrong with my keyboard, I think. I can't even get this to come off now. What did I do? Why can't I remove this? I think I was hitting it in the wrong place, maybe. Let's try. Crazy. I don't have an edit control and I can't remove it. Why? Oh, I see. It went on top of the other one. Okay. I got it now. It did work. Now, how do I? Now, that one removes. That's the one I want. Maybe it'll remove from here. This is nuts. I mean, it's crazy. Well, anyway, I got it changed. I don't know. Uh, all right. So I don't know when Trump's going to do anything, but the big fear is that Iran closes the Persian Gulf, which they partially did anyway, based on their military exercises. So it could get pretty hairy. Hey, let's see what the gold and silver and the oil is selling for, because that's really important. Okay, let's start with gold and silver. Gold and silver were making a rebound as of yesterday. Let's see how it's doing. Rebound is still good. It's over 5,100. So gold right now is 5,105, but it's been over 5,100. And silver's at 84. So silver's and gold are still down, but they're doing okay. Let's get a price for crude oil. Let me do that with AI. Let them search the internet. Um, Current price now, this hour, for crude oil a barrel. See, you got to force AI to do the right thing. If I just tell them, current price, who knows what they'll come up with? It's if you say right now, this hour, you'll get it. So what am I getting for 66.48 for regular, and the Brent is 71. So it's not very high at this point in time. So, but I'm sure people are watching very closely. Now, the price of corn and grain isn't going to go up when gold and silver goes up, but the price of oil and gold and silver are going to go at the same time. They'll go together. Do you think Trump tells his friends that, oh, I'm going to do the war, so you should be buying gold? You'll be good if you buy gold? I think he probably does. I get a lot of people that want to do a business promotion or something with me, but I can't do it because I don't monetize or anything. I don't make money off the people that watch by uh, making merchandise out of them. That's not correct. You know, I don't know why packages are getting delivered so much faster here in Israel than they used to be. I don't have any idea. I know you can buy things from India now, and the India Post changed their whole system. It used to be 6, 7 weeks. Now it's quick. You get postage from India faster than from America. You get quick postage from the UK too. You get that, it's not so bad. But your FedEx, those places, they're coming pretty fast now from many countries into Israel. So I don't understand why all of a sudden it got good, but it did. All right. Let's see if anything just happened in the last couple hours. So we just got to wait for this war. It's going to go, and it'll get ugly, when it goes. Okay, so let me tell you what I did. Um, Bible stuff. So Daniel 9:24. It says 70 weeks. Okay. So actually we'll go through. Give me a second. I'll come right back real quick. We'll go through Daniel 9:24 to 27, and I'll show you it's all screwed up in the English. So I was starting a fight with Chat GPT. I have a paid version of wait 1 second, I'll be right. Of a mistake in the Bible in the English. Yes. Who's this? Who is this? Hi. Yeah, it's me. Okay. Okay. A little bit, not much, just a little. Yeah. Okay. So do you wanna come okay. Okay, when did you wanna come? You can in the afternoon. Okay, just any afternoon is good. Well, if you come like 11:30, any day that could work too. Yeah, when did you want to do it today? Okay, no problem. Just call. Okay, just give me a call. I'm always home usually. Okay, no problem. Okay, very good. Thank you. Hey, do you know who the social worker is there at Maccabi? You do? I had an appointment on the telephone with her, and they canceled it. And I don't know. Could you tell her to call me? Is that possible, please? Well, it was last Thursday. Yeah, last week, and she never came. And I got a message, an SMS that they canceled it. She was, but then Maccabi sent me a message that the call was canceled. Oh, it'd be very good if you told her to just call me or something. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Okay, have a good day. Bye. Yeah, too good. Sorry, that was physical therapist called me. My pushing into the welfare system here seems to be working. All right. Um, So, Daniel. This scripture that I'm reading to you is the kingpin of false doctrine. Okay? Daniel 9:24. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people. Okay, let me tell you something right now. The word for 70 in Hebrew is shavim. The word that they have for weeks is the same exact word as 70. Exact. It's 5 characters. It's exactly the same word. And it doesn't mean week. It can't mean week. It means 70, 70. Okay? Now, why are they calling it 0? Are they calling it weeks? Actually, the vowel pointing on both of these words is identical, but the vowel pointing is phony. Phony baloney. Okay? Around 600 to 800 years after Yeshua was on the earth, you got a bunch of people that called themselves the Masoretes, Jews, and they wrote the text. They would rewrite the Bible. At that point, there was no Gutenberg press. I think that was around 1400. So they were scribes, and they rewrote it. All right. To get the people to understand the Bible as if they knew the Bible, they put the vowel pointing in to change the meaning of the words. Okay? Because they were so smart. They knew what the words meant, but you didn't. Only they did. Now, let's throw the anchors out and stop right here and ask a few questions. Did these Masoretes believe Yeshua was the Messiah? No. Did they believe that Yeshua was a bastard because he was born of the Holy Spirit and a woman, and they didn't believe that, so they thought he was a bastard? In other words, nobody knew who his father was. Yeah, that's what they believed. Did they think he was a witch? Yeah. Did they think he was not the Son of God and never rose from the dead? Yeah. Did they get along with the people that wrote the Talmud, which came before them? Yeah. The Talmud writings is what influenced them to believe that way about Yeshua. So, are these people a reputable source to interpret the scriptures? It's a joke. Of course not. Of course not. Are they going to give you an accurate interpretation of the scriptures? Never. Never. So I'm wrestling with ChatGPT and I say, are there any other places in the Bible where you see Shavim and Shavim 2 times in a row back to back? No. Are there any other like 30-30 or 50-50? No. No. So they can't attack it. You can't counterattack them based on context to how it's done in other places, right? Let me ask it another question. I want to make sure on that. I'm not remembering, but I want to double check and make sure. It's better to make sure. Is there a place in the King James Bible where you see the Hebrew word for 30 two times in a row in succession next to each other? The same for 40 or 50. Short answer, no. Okay, so I'm right. All right. So there's no example of that. So they can't argue. So you can't argue against these Masoretic text writers with this crap, right? Okay. So they just made this junk up. They said, well, this word is Shavim, and the first one means 70. The second one, heck, it means weeks. Based on what? Nothing. Based on nothing. Other than it's weeks because we said it so, and we're the Masoretes. And we don't believe Yeshua's the Messiah. Yeah, oh boy, I'm going to listen to you. Yeah, sure. That's the history of why it says 70 weeks instead of 70. Who are you going to go with? The Masoretes and the Talmud writers? Or what really it says in the text? Thank you, but for me in my house, we'll go with the Bible. What it says. Not what a bunch of Christ-denying scribes are going to tell me. Having fun yet? The pastors can't give you a counter argument on this, neither can the rabbis. Every Hebrew manuscript floating around going back to 900 AD says Shavim. I've checked many. What the heck are these 70 years? Well, we have two candidates for the first 70, don't we? Well, I'll explain. One is obvious, the Babylonian captivity. But that doesn't lend itself to it, and I'll explain why. By reading the scriptures. Instead of just sitting here and talking like some schmuck at a seminary. Okay, where are we? It's on 6. Okay, 25, 24 we want. 70s are determined upon thy people. That's the Israelites. When you say the Jews, you're meaning the Yehudi, the Judah. But when you say Israelites, you're getting all the Israelites, okay? So, anyway, you got basically Judah and Levi here now, and Judah's in Judah, and Levi, you can basically consider the Levites pertaining to Judah. They're Judah's Levites, so, but you should say thy people are the Israelites, not the Jews. Okay. I don't know what tribe Daniel was from. Okay, and upon thy holy city. Now, is Jerusalem a holy city now? You want to go take a tour of gay bars in Jerusalem? I'm sure we could find a couple, probably. No, it's not a holy city. Muslim mosques and minarets, come on. Catholic churches. We got Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox, Baptist. Come on. Let's get off of that. Okay, it's not yet a holy city. To finish the transgression and to make an end of sins and to make reconciliation for lawlessness and to bring in everlasting righteousness and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Anointing the most holy is not anointing Yeshua. It's the temple. Okay, what Yeshua's name is in Hebrew is Yeshua, which is probably meaning giver or source of salvation. Okay, I don't have to cram that. I don't have to cram that down your throat. Uh-oh, I don't know what this is. My wife. Hello? 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 I'm here. I'm here. Will do. Okay, right now. Okay, bye. All right, that was like an emergency prayer request from my wife. Some guy caused an accident, a fender bender, nothing serious with her. But the guy is one of the 2/3 of Israel, a stinking liar. You know, the 2/3 that get caught up. This is him. And he works for an insurance company, no less. So he's claiming my wife did it. And my wife has a camera in the car that people in Israel buy these because the other Israelis are such liars, you know. Now, Israel 35, 40 years ago was never this way, but it is now. Satan's really taken its toll on it. And I blame mostly Netanyahu and his administration for this. But basically, I'll give you the prayer request and you guys can agree with it, okay? B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my heavenly Father Jehovah, I pray that we can get some good footage out of this car camera that proves the guy was lying. And I also pray that that this guy doesn't get away with lying and establishing that my wife is at fault when he's at fault. And I submit this to you, my heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with it now, spiritual warfare. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I bind all you unclean spirits from being inside any person that is trying to frame my wife for an accident she didn't do. I pray that the unclean spirits come out of this driver, everyone who lives in the same house as him, and everybody who works for his insurance company. And I bind all you unclean spirits from being inside any of these people. And you shall have to come out from these people immediately, and no unclean spirit can go into any of these people again for the next 10 years continuously, nor appear to them, nor guide them, nor lead them, nor direct them, nor help them, nor assist them, nor do any evil with them, nor can they help them do any evil to any other person for the next 10 years, nor can they help them with lies and deceit and lying in court and using crooked lawyers for the next 10 years continuously. And also, You unclean spirits have to depart from every lawyer that works for them or that they hire or retain. And when you come out of these people, you shall not go back into them ever. And no unclean spirit shall go into these lawyers or appear to them or guide them or lead them, direct them, help them or assist them or deceive them about anything for the next 10 years continuously. And I also bind these people from doing any corruption with the government. And for the next 10 years continuously, beginning now. And this is all done irrevocably, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And please agree if you're a believer, even if it's a video. So we just knock this thing out, you know. This guy is just a really nasty individual, you know. Causes an accident and then tries to stress my wife out. Says he works for an insurance company at the accident scene and he doesn't have a copy of his insurance. And you know, so she calls our insurance company and so then he had their insurance company send him some insurance on his WhatsApp, which he transferred over to her. So he did, you know, he probably never had insurance, and then he just had somebody at the office make it up. Then at the scene of the accident, he had them check my wife's driving record. Now, he has no right to do that. The insurance company probably lied and said that, you know, we were applying for insurance and ran a check on her driving record. Well, this is at the accident scene. Now, what am I going to do? Go and start a complaint about that? And, you know, yeah. The people in Israel are horrible. Okay, they're horrible. Only 2/3 of them, though. The 1/3 aren't. Okay, so what about 70 years? So we got a 70-year Babylonian captivity. It doesn't exactly sound like it. They went to Babylon, they stayed 70 years, and then Cyrus got rid of the Babylonians and they came back to Israel, and Zerubbabel built another temple and a small temple and all that. Okay, that doesn't lend itself. Now, let's talk a little bit about when Yeshua was born. Well, they tell you, if you look it up, what you'll get is Yeshua was born anywhere from 4 to 6 BC. That means Yeshua was born 4 to 6 years before Christ. So they're saying he was born several years before he was born. Now, do you want to follow logic like that for your faith? I don't. These are morons that talk like that, and you got to be a moron to listen to them. These are your seminarians, okay? All right, now, when did they say he died? Well, they talk about 30 AD, 33 AD. Let me tell you what's wrong with all that stuff that they do. They go from BC to AD. They don't have a 0 year. They really don't. That's how stupid you know. So if you were going to do this right, when would Yeshua have been born? He would have been born in the 0 year. Because he couldn't have been born before and he couldn't have been born after. So it'd have to be 0. What happened in 70 AD? The temple got ransacked and burned, and they got killed and taken slave and stuff like that with the Romans. So could that be the second 70 or the first 70? Well, it could be. What happened? We got rid of the apostates. What did the good ones do? Well, they left Jerusalem. They were in the countryside. Yeshua said, when you see the army come, get out of Dodge, and they did. They were also being persecuted in Jerusalem, which drove them out. The only ones that stuck around were the apostles. Got it? So what it appears to be rather obvious is that when Yeshua appears in the clouds, and he also is going to be seated at the right hand of God the Father, because Psalms 110:1 says, the Lord said to my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. Well, at the time of Yeshua's appearing, his enemies are not yet his footstool, so he's still with God the Father. So the two of them come. It says he's, with power and great glory. A lot of it is his, and it's also the Father too with him, I believe. So he appears in the clouds. He doesn't come down to earth. Okay? And that begins the second 70. And then Israel is given 70 years to get their act straight. And what happens is towards the end, there's a great falling away. And that's what brings on Ezekiel 38, 39, Gog and Magog, Zechariah 14. And it brings on Ezekiel chapters 8 to 11. It's all the same thing. In the book of Joel, it's all the same thing. So in the book of Joel, we read that the sun goes dark and the moon turns to blood. That would be the beginning of the second 70. And then we read towards the end of the 70, it's a little different. The sun goes dark, the moon goes dark, and the stars fall and don't give their light. And that's the end of the 70. That's in Joel chapter 2. You could read about both those events. Okay, one's at the beginning of the chapter and one's more towards the end. Okay, and a lot of people get killed in that, just like they did in 70 AD in Jerusalem. A lot of them are going to get killed because they're evil and wicked. They're doing bad stuff in the temple, stuff like that. They're doing bad things, worshiping the sun god. Tammuz, that's in Ezekiel chapter 8. They caused the glory God of Israel to leave his temple. That's in Ezekiel 9. And in Ezekiel 9, God puts a mark on the foreheads of all the people that are grievous of the injustices in Jerusalem, a mark. But the mark is like, Davy Crockett days. You're going to, buy a guy's cows or his land or something, and they say, here, put your mark here, and the guy signs his name. He doesn't make an act, he signs his name. So when it says mark, it can mean the name. So God puts his name, Jehovah, on the people. And then it says in Ezekiel 9, nothing bad happens to the people that have the mark. The ones that don't have the mark in Zechariah 14, they get raped, they get looted, plundered, they go into captivity, they become slaves. And the rest of the people just stay in Jerusalem. They don't go anywhere. They got the mark. What are they worried about? You probably read about the mark in your Bible, but not in Ezekiel 9. They won't teach you that, of course, but it's there. And the rest of them have bad things happen to them. So that's the purging. Now, that's really what happened in 70 AD. You had a purging. You kind of had that with the Babylonian captivity, but not really, because the good ones went to Babylon. The bad ones stayed in Israel, and they lasted for quite a few years till the Lord dropped on them and they got killed. So it doesn't lend itself as well as this what happened in 70 AD. And then at the end of 70 AD, they basically left Israel to some extent, a lot of them, but not entirely. I don't know. There's nothing that's really perfect about it, but somebody could say, well, the first 70 was Babylon, the second 70 was the 70 AD. Yeah, but where does the everlasting life come in? And the forgiveness of the sins and all the evil stuff they did, that didn't happen yet. It doesn't happen yet. It happens at the end of the second 70 when Yeshua returns. And then we go into New Jerusalem. We get a good part of it because when we have the everlasting life, God puts his law, and that's not necessarily the Mosaic law, the Moses law, the law, puts it inside our inner parts, in our heart, and no one's going to say know the Lord because they shall all know him. Everybody's going to know the Lord. And we're going to have the law in our heart, so we're going to be right, but there's still going to be rebellion. Okay, so I think the better match is the Babylonian, not the Babylonian, the 70 AD. So rather than you get enlightened to that and understand what's going on, they prefer to call it 70 weeks, and then people are thinking there's a tribulation of 70 weeks. Look, this is not in the scripture. This is something the Lord told me. When he told it to me, he told me what it means, and I said, no, that's not what it means. And he was very nice, and he said, no, it is. and he realized that I just was talking to him like some other person or something, and I didn't realize that the writer of the Bible was telling me that. Then I snapped out of it, and so a time, the times, and half a time. What that is, it's captivity. Okay, the first time was Egypt. The second time was Babylon. The third time was Rome. And the fourth time is found in Zechariah 14. Half of Jerusalem goes into captivity, and the rest of them remain. I better read that to you. Zechariah 14, it's up at the top, maybe verse 2. Let's see. For I will gather all nations, all heathens, against Jerusalem to battle. Now that's against Israel. In Zechariah 12, it's the whole land of Israel, not just Jerusalem. And it's not battle. They lay a siege. Okay, so it's different. Okay, to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue, the leftover of the people, shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. Okay, now that's Jehovah. It says Jehovah. Now the glory of God of Israel has God's name placed inside him. Okay, I think that's in Daniel. No, it's I forgot where it is, but it's in there. God places his name inside the glory of God of Israel. So he can be called by the name Jehovah, receive the offerings in the temple, and so forth. So he's the one that goes out and fights. And it's his feet that stand in the day upon the Mount of Olives. And you could read that in um, Ezekiel 11. Okay. Um, And when did Yeshua ever fight in the day of battle? Never did yet. So it can't be Yeshua. It's the glory of God of Israel. And his feet shall stand upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof towards the east, and there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove towards the north, and half towards the south, and you shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yea, you shall flee as you fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah, and Jehovah Elohim shall come, and all the saints with him, with thee. That the Holy One, saints, the Holy One, could be the angels coming with him. And it shall come to pass in that day that the night shall not be clear nor dark, but it shall be one day which shall be known to Jehovah, not day nor night, but it shall come to pass that at evening time it shall be light. And it shall be in that day that living waters shall go forth from Jerusalem. That's coming from the temple. That's coming, passing under the throne of the glory of God of Israel, and the water brings life to the other water, and the fishes flourish and stuff like that. Okay. So this is the return of Yeshua to earth, where the beast and the false prophet go into lake of fire alive, and Satan winds up in the pit, and New Jerusalem comes. We go into New Jerusalem, where there is no death, and we eat of the tree of life, and we drink of the water of life. And there is no temple in New Jerusalem, and there are no more offerings. And you have access to Yeshua and the glory of God of Israel. They're enthroned there. I imagine you see them and you can talk to them. I'm sure they'll be very nice to talk to. All right. So this is real Bible prophecy in your Bible, based on your Bible, not based on crap you get from the churches. Okay. The church publishers, if they don't publish only books that are acceptable to the churches, they will be bankrupt because the churches will blacklist them. And then what? You got nothing. They go bust. So they're not going to sell anything that opposes what the churches preach. So that's just not going to happen. When you were just saved, did you ever wonder why the people only meet on Sunday for an hour and a half? I used to. I'd say, guys, why don't they have church every day? It ain't the real church. So we got to be careful about what we use for translation. We need a real translation, or we need to speak Hebrew. The problem is that the Hebrew that they're using in the Bibles isn't what like David and Solomon was speaking. They didn't have Hebrew like that. Now, you look at the oldest Hebrew text that we have, and it's from 900 AD. Why don't we have any earlier ones? Well, they say we do. Oh, really? Do we? I don't think so. They say the Dead Sea Scrolls are that they go back before AD. Yeah? Based on what? Carbon 14 dating. They take the scrolls, which come from trees, and they say they interpret how it degrades or something like that, and then they estimate from that how old it is. You believe that? I don't. I think it's poppycock. They don't know what the carbon 14 levels were 2,000 years ago. I don't believe any of that. Just like they took New Testaments and they said they found them in some church in Jerusalem, and they say that they're older than the other manuscripts. They're not older. They just say they are. And that's what they tried to do to rewrite the New Testament, would put more crap in it, you know. When you use Strongs, it's pretty good, but you got to go back and use the Strongs that you had to buy, I think, before about 1980-ish. I think 1988 was maybe the last time they had a good Strongs, or maybe earlier, 1982 or something. What Strongs did is they came out and they started calling it a Stronger Strongs, and they started calling it a revised Strongs. That's what they do all the time. And they probably made it worse. Okay? That's what they do. So I'm pretty sure they made it worse. So they messed us up with the lexicons, you know? Now I ask about Septuagints, and they say they got Septuagints that go back previous to Yeshua on earth, but based on what? Them? Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of suspicion going on. But let me give you the other side of the coin. If Satan left out things from the Bible and managed to successfully hoodwink us, it wouldn't be sin for us to do those things. The only time the sins are going to count, if the people do them, is to So, if the sins weren't in there, and you did them or didn't do them, whatever, if it's a sin of omission or commission, it couldn't be held against you. So he has to have stuff in there, and then God only lets him go so far. So we got a pretty good knowledge and understanding of things, but I still think that there's things that are missing and things that will probably come to light pretty soon. For instance, it says in Ezekiel 37, the last three verses, that we're going to have the tabernacle again. And then in 2 Maccabees 2, chapter 2, we read that Jeremiah the prophet, before the Babylonian captivity, hid the tabernacle in a cave in Jerusalem and sealed it up. And it was with fire making, well, let's keep it simple. He kept us, he put it in there, and then we had the ark is in there with the tabernacle, okay? And there's an altar of incense. Some people say the actual fire could be there, the flame but all these thousands of years, could the flame be there? If Jehovah wanted it to, it could, but I don't know why it would be, and I don't think it is. But um, that enabled us, that will enable us to perhaps have scriptures, because the text of the Bible might be there, with the altar. I don't know. All right, so there's a lot of errors, and I'm illuminating you to just some of them, and it's it's difficult, and the church just accelerates everything to Gog and Magog. They don't go into that 70-year period where we have everlasting life. Yet that was the hope of the apostles, was to get to the everlasting life stage. That's what their great hope was. Because they looked at the return of Yeshua and New Jerusalem and all that is very far down the road. So they didn't have a good concept of timing. When you read it, they were thinking this was going to happen any time. They didn't quite get it. I don't know if all of them were that way, but maybe just some of them. I'll be right back. Hang on. Now, we talked about the glory of God having God's name in him. Okay, but what we can do is do the Kohanim blessing, because I'm a Kohanim, a priest, and I have the Holy Spirit, and I'm in Israel where he accepts you. So I've got the bases covered. And this is not the same as putting his name in you, but it's close, as you'll see. So I'm going to read it to you for real. I'm going to be doing this for all the true believers that listen to it. And I'm going to read it right out of the Bible. I'm in Numbers 6:22. Okay, I'll do it in English, and it's real. I'm not playing. This is the real thing. Okay, here we go. And Jehovah spake unto Moses, saying, or Moshe is his real name, saying, speak unto Aaron, or Aaron in English, and unto the sons of, saying, well, I'm technically a son of Aaron. I really am. I mean, many generations removed, but that's where I fall. It's a Kohanim, saying, on this wise you shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them. Now, if you don't know about any bloodline to Israel, but you are a real believer in Yeshua with the real gospel, well, then you're in Israel, so it works for you. Okay? And here we go. Jehovah bless thee and keep thee. Jehovah make his face shine upon thee and be gracious unto thee. Jehovah lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee shalom. And I put the name, well, it'd be Jehovah, upon the children of Israel, the true believers listening to this, and Jehovah will bless them. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. It says, do all things in the name of Yeshua. So they don't do it the right way. They don't believe in Yeshua. They don't have the Holy Spirit. They are in Israel. But I do it the right way. Okay? There you go. You don't even have to buy a seat at the synagogue. All right. So that's what we got. All right. Did the Kohanim blessing ever go away? No, because the Kohanim didn't go away. No, the Kohanim will be functioning in the next temple. So no, it didn't go away. All right. So that's what I got. And please pray I'm getting that blister on the gum again. It keeps coming and going. It comes up, it goes down. It keeps varying. So please pray for me to get that blister on the gum. It goes away and stays away once and for all. I appreciate that. So that's what we got. And I'll get a prayer out for everybody. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for all the true believers and their household and me and my wife. I pray that we have your peace, safety, protection, and joy, and we have strength, stamina, and endurance, and your healing and recuperative power flows through us, healing what needs to be healed. And I pray that all of us and our animals and pets are safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And we have no accidents, no tickets, no breakdowns, no getting stopped, stuck, or stranded with any cars or vehicles, no accidents or mishaps, no discrimination or robbery or fraud or embezzlement or con jobs or being assaulted or broken into, or nothing happens to our houses or cars and our pets. And I pray that we would know the Bible better. And if we need work, we have work. If we need clients and customers, we have those. We would have adequate money and then some. And I pray for the peace of Yerushalayim. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And I'm out, and I hope you got something out of this. And it went too long. I'm sorry. I try to get it more concise. Let me see what's going on here. I don't know anything about the Trees Life Project or any of that. So, okay, guys, I'm out. Thank you.